It's the end of an era. Trump really did it. International trade will never be the same again. And everything went down today. Nothing was spared from the bloodbath, not even gold and silver. First, what's up, Checker Mind Games? Everything went down today. Bitcoin, stocks, gold, silver, nothing was spared. Ooh. The crazy bastard did it. He is relentless, man. Oh, the economy. How could he do this to the economy? I don't know what he's thinking, man. Donald Trump, what is he thinking? The entire world. The United States is in a world war. A tariff war. How do I get out of here? Oh wait. That's how you get back. Okay. Yeah, like what is Donald Trump thinking? I think this is gonna backfire. What Donald Trump's doing. You know, when it's Canada, Mexico, China, it's like okay. That's your three biggest trading partners, but it's still only three countries. But nah, he's just going after the whole world. Nobody's safe.
Faster? Okay, faster.
It's not gonna end well for the United States. Not for the economy, at least. Ugh. It's gonna be crazy. I can't wait to see what happens. Donald Trump is gonna make America go broke. No. We go to save America. I'm too tired for this shit. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be doing this. Oh my god. Shut up. I don't want to be doing this. No, I don't want to be doing this. Fuck, I need some McDonald's. Oh wow. Yeah. Which is great. Well, I don't even need the chat. Fuck the chat.
1, 2.
Get out there, Aslan. Get the fuck out of there. Do you even understand what's happened today, Aslan? The markets are decimated. The markets are completely decimated. Oh, the economy is truly collapsing. This is the end. actually is one up here. Huh.
If only we had some help here.
What is this place? Nothing else to collect around here. This person has a side mission? Where has Daddy gone? Hello, I can't find my daddy. He said he would come to pick me up and that we'd go see the snow together, but the time we arranged has come and gone, and he isn't here yet. I thought that he must have found some rare precious treasure map or something, which is why he hasn't come to find me yet. That has to be it, right? So I came to Dragonspine by myself. If he's not going to come find me, then I'll go looking for him, or so I thought. I didn't find Daddy here either. That knight of Favonius over there said that he'd headed off for the mountain summit. I wanted to go search for him, but the knight wouldn't let me. So I'm stuck here waiting for Daddy to come home. But he hasn't come back at all, and I'm worried. If you're going up Dragonspine, could you help me look for Daddy? Sure. What is even Dragonspine? Mountain?
Daddy! On top of that mountain.
I don't even know what Dragonspine is.
I want to build a snowman. Will you help? Ooh, pretty. Closing in.
Aslan, what do you think about PS5 versus the laptop? Yeah, you don't know shit, Aslan.
Oh, so sorry.
Jab it.
Nice.
Should freeze.
Whoa, why did I just go flying like that? Oh shit.
Freeze.
Up and away. Just a moment. Let's tally this up.
Emergency supply point.
Let's move.
Up and fly.
Let's end this quickly.
Dancing in the wind. Closing in.
This isn't good. This one's well done.
matrix. Life goes on.
Who's this first?
Closing in.
I must collect myself. Roasted
Up and away. Ills be gone.
You need to hurry up.
Rise.
Roasted fried. You need to hurry up. You need to hurry up. You need to hurry
Shut
up.
up.
Roasted fried.
Wheel of life.
Fucking mod.
You need to hurry up.
Closing in.
Well done. You need to hurry up. Roasted fried.
Up and away. Swift is the swallow.
This was well done.
Gets the fire.
Score! Let's see what's inside.
Yeah, whatever. Come on. Need more than that. Damn it.
Follows n-
How do I get more?
These twins.
Let me go to that.
Need some water? Here, take a sip of mine. It's infused with mint leaves, so it's extra refreshing.
Good. It's just gonna end. It's just gonna. The laptop's just gonna end. Everything's struggling to survive right now. I don't know how much more fight it's got left in it as land. Oh, what's that? see it.
Yep. Yeah. Closing in. Yeah. Butterfly. Whoa! Can I have some? Spread the luck around.
Nah.
So,
It's nighttime. Spooky.
yeah, closing in. Ills be gone. Yeah.
So after you spend the money, you get the money back by giving the money to get the money, so the money goes and the money comes and the money leaves and the money just goes in circles.
Justice will prevail. Drop your weapon.
An absolute bloodbath. About it. Scan it frame by frame.
can fly.
Wonder what Peter Schiff has got to say about all this. He's probably got something good to say. That's why you try not to get too tired, Aslan. You know what I mean now, Aslan? Oh, Aslan, so you're tired? Well, I'm tired too, Aslan.
And we do have breaking news. A look at the markets just minutes after the opening bell this morning as Wall Street reacts to President Trump's new tariffs. You can see the giant red arrow pointing down. Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans and NBC News senior business analyst and host, of course, of the 11th hour, Stephanie Ruhle. Lauren Leader back with us as well. Steph, let's just get your blink reaction here to the markets. S&P 500 down 3%. My phone full of push alerts with dire news in terms of reactions to President Trump's new tariffs.
The best for tan.
And I'll tell you, my phone in the last 24 hours, I've been speaking to former Trump administration officials from his first term, CEOs of consumer products companies, Wall Street investors, and economists. And people are sort of blown away on the negative because what's really lost here, Jonathan, is trust. We have the biggest, strongest economy. Even the math that they're using and this idea that having a trade deficit means all these other countries are ripping us off, that's not the case. There have been some bad trade deals over the years, without a doubt. But us having a trade deficit with other countries, no, we're the biggest, best economy. We buy more stuff. But when I say a loss of trust, just think about this. When you talk about trading, these are long-term partnerships and investments. We told all these manufacturers for years, stop doing business in China. They're our adversary. Go to Vietnam. Now look what we're doing to Vietnam. In Trump's first administration, it was Trump and Jared Kushner that renegotiated NAFTA to create the USMCA, right? A better NAFTA. Now they're tearing it up. We're losing trust with our global partners, and that's a huge problem. And the last thing I would say is this argument that we keep hearing from the White House, short-term pain for long-term gain and all these jobs that are going to be roaring back. Where? I have not seen one single CEO saying, I'm going to build a manufacturing plant here. Howard Lutnick has said the robots are going to start manufacturing the things. When and where? Because for a company to now say we're going to start manufacturing in the United States, it takes 3 to 5 years to build that plant. 3 to 5 years from now, Donald Trump is not going to be in office. Who knows if he'll retract on these tariffs? And in order for you to make any sort of investment, a long-term investment, you have to trust the information. You have to trust your counterparty. And my last point I would make is Donald Trump is not trusted in a business sense. And I take you back to his history. What is he great at? He's great at branding. He's great at marketing. He's a phenomenal politician. What he's not great at is business. As a business person, we all know this. He went bankrupt 6 times. The one business he tried to operate was a casino that he drove into the ground. And the reason he didn't do business with big U.S. banks is because they were unwilling to do business with him. I know this because I worked at Deutsche Bank, the bank that actually did do business with him. And what he's known for is not standing up to contracts, not standing up to deals that he agrees to. And now he's doing that on American soil with American trading policies. And this could put our country in grave risk when it comes to being the superpower that we are. And if you don't believe me, listen to what Rand Paul has to say, right? An elected official who knows what this will do politically and economically. And it's hugely dangerous.
So, Christine, in Trump's first term, the stock market acted as something of a tripwire.
Yeah.
That when it would fall below a certain level, he'd kind of back off things, change his rhetoric, whatever it might be, because he puts so much emphasis, some would say too much emphasis, on how the stock market's doing to sort of gauge the health of the economy. But it does not seem to be the case this time around.
He used the stock market as his own personal poll or a letter grade in school, and he really wore it as a badge. Even yesterday at the Rose Garden, he was talking about how great the stock market was under his first administration. We call that a stock market put, a Trump put, that maybe if things, you know, to use an options term, that maybe if things go really sour, he would change his behavior this time. I don't think that's the case anymore. You've heard the White House officials talking about the 10-year note yield. That is the thing they're talking about. It's declining. That's lowering interest rates for consumers and businesses. That's a good thing. Well, it's declining because there's fear about his economic agenda and what it's going to do to the economy. So it's falling for a bad reason, not a good reason, but that's the number that they're starting to use now. So I don't think that they're looking at the stock market, at least so far, a 1,200 point, near the lows of the day, a 1,200 point decline, something that he would have said, if it were the Biden administration, he would have said this is impeachable, having a stock market fall like this. But they're not. This is not one of their metrics anymore.
And to the haphazard nature of these tariffs, some of these are on a number of countries that include several uninhabited islands. Okay. The Heard Island and the McDonald Islands, which are located in the sub-Antarctic Indian Ocean, made Trump's list. While teeming with seals, penguins, and other birds, these islands have no permanent human population. A White House official tells Axios that the islands were included because they are Australian territory. Located 2,000 miles from the Australian mainland, it takes 2 weeks to sail to the island. So, Lauren, no exceptions at all, not even for penguins. We've really showed them. But this goes to, it's seemingly illustrative of, I was told up until yesterday morning, they were still negotiating and figuring out what kind of tariffs to place in what sort of country. The formula is all over the place. People have decoded how they've figured this out. But it is, one thing is clear, is that we're all, even the penguins, going to feel it.
By the way, Ian Bremmer with the tweet of the morning with a picture of a mass gathering of penguins and saying that it is 10% of the island protesting the protest.
Oh, my plan for the day? Doing whatever I feel like, I suppose. Same with tomorrow, and the day after that.
What if I told you that good intentions could lead to devastating consequences? That protecting jobs could actually destroy them? And that the very measures designed to make a country wealthy could be the source of its poverty? Even worse, it could even open up the door for countries like China to take over as the world's economic superpower. Throughout history, one seemingly simple policy has repeatedly threatened to unravel the fabric of global prosperity. In 1930, the United States implemented the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, hoping to protect American workers. Instead, it helped trigger a 66% decline in world trade. But this wasn't a one-time mistake. In 1984, the U.S. tried again with steel tariffs, aiming to protect American steelworkers from foreign competition. The result? 5,000 steel jobs were saved, but 26,000 jobs were lost in steel-using industries. The cost to save each steel job was approximately $113,000 per year, while the average steelworker earned only $24,000. Today, we'll explore why tariffs, despite their appealing promises, are one of the most destructive economic policies ever invented. We'll examine historical evidence, understand the hidden effects, and most importantly, learn how to protect ourselves from their impact. Because sadly, the US's experiment with tariffs could lead to the complete destruction of the global economy. But before we get started, we need to understand the basics of tariffs, what they are, how they work, when they don't, and when they should and shouldn't be used. And in order to do that, we need to begin with the nature of trade. Many politicians would have you believe that trade is a zero-sum game, but it's not. When there's trade between two countries or two parties, both parties benefit, or the trade simply wouldn't occur. If there wasn't a benefit to the United States to trade with China or Canada or Mexico, they simply wouldn't trade. The trade partnerships would not exist. Because if it was more expensive to buy goods that were produced in China or goods that were produced in Canada or Mexico, then we simply wouldn't buy them. And more importantly, if it didn't make sense for the goods that we're buying from those countries to be produced in those countries, then obviously we would make them at home. But ultimately, the decision for trade isn't made by governments. It's made by individuals. Because people get to vote with their wallets. And when people vote with their wallets, the production of goods and the import and exports of goods is determined by what people are willing to buy and how much they are willing to pay. It's as simple as that. And ultimately, trade is pretty much a perfect barometer of what makes sense. That's just how it works. However, there are both seen and unseen effects when it comes to global trade. Obviously, what we see when we're talking about things like tariffs and protecting industries is the protected industries themselves, the jobs that are saved as a result of making sure that foreign competitors can't compete, and of course, the government revenue that is a direct result of tariffs. But there's also an unseen effect. And the things we don't see are significantly more important than the things we do. First of all, there's higher costs for all downstream industries. When a tariff is placed on something like steel, everything that uses steel in its production goes up in cost. And as a result, if we tariff steel, for example, from foreign competitors, we may save jobs in the steel industry, but we may lose jobs pretty much everywhere else. And I'll get to a real-life example of that in a few minutes. Now, if lost jobs throughout the economy aren't bad enough, we also fail to see that there's reduced consumer purchasing power. When you increase the prices of goods by imposing tariffs on those that are being imported, you are literally taking money out of the American consumer's pocket and making it harder for them to purchase more goods, which has a trickle-down effect throughout the entire economy. And I'll get to some exact numbers on that a little bit later on as well. But where things get really scary is actually the retaliation from other nations. Because just like one country has the ability to tariff goods that are imported, well, other countries also have that same ability. And they also have the ability to limit the amount of goods that are going to any individual country. There isn't just one mechanism here when it comes to trade, there's multiple. And tariffs are just the tip of the iceberg. An iceberg that could be as devastating to the global economy as the iceberg that hit the Titanic was. Or wait, was it the Titanic that hit the iceberg? Sometimes it gets hard to remember who the victim is. And unfortunately, experiments like tariffs aren't something we haven't seen before. We have very clear case studies for why they work and why they don't. Take, for example, NAFTA, which essentially eliminated most tariffs and most trade barriers. Many people, when NAFTA was being proposed, expected that jobs would be lost to Mexico. But in actual effect, jobs increased in both Mexico and the United States. And not only that, unemployment rates fell as well. The US went from 7 to 4%, Canada went from 11 to 7%, and there was good reason for this, which I'll explain a little bit later on. But here's the reality. When it comes to prosperity, when one country becomes more prosperous, it buys more because it has more to buy with. And when it buys more, there are more jobs. And this is true for one country, or two countries, or three, or five, or the entire global economy. When you knock down the barriers to trade, everyone gets more prosperous, and as a result, everybody wins.
So what's changed? Something very basic has changed. Very important to understand. The rates on 5-year fixed have dropped down to the lowest point in 2.5 years. Maybe longer.
I don't know about
maybe
that.
all the way back to 2022.
I don't know about
So,
that.
a very major movement. Now, sometimes people say, well, wait a minute, they're not 2%. What are you talking about? Sure,
not
but
anyway.
we had rates in the 4s. There was a 4 in front of every rate for, hell, 18 months ago, there was a 5 in front of every rate. At one point, there was a 6 in front of every rate. But today, there's 3 in front of most 5-year fixed rates. So it's, the ultra low is like a high ratio CMHC insured mortgage at 364. And that could range up to 369 because that's a big mortgage. You got to be over 750. Then that could range up to 369 for other CMHC. But there's lots of 379. 379 is available for big conventional mortgages. That's just 20% down. Big purchases, big renewals. There's lots of 389. There's tons of 394s.
thin
Like,
and strong
409
like
is a
silk.
high rate today.
Furniture
Today,
like that
this
can be
day,
just as
409 is
precious
a
as
high rate.
silver
So,
family heirloom.
bottom line is
That's
this.
no exaggeration.
I am warning everybody. I pushed variable for 16 months. And my simple thesis was this. And by the way, I was 100% right. Okay? You know, variable came down, came down, came down, came down. My suggestion was always the same. Eventually, we will get rates that start with a 3, maybe like mid to high 3s, somewhere in there. And you will have an opportunity to lock in your variable rate with your existing lender to a 5-year fix. Now, people might say, well, what about a 2-year fix? What about a 3-year fix? Here's my point. Unless you absolutely know that you're only going to be in the house for 2 years, that you're going to need to break, or you're going to move to a bigger house, you're going to move to a smaller house, that mortgage is going to have to be broken. If you just think you're going to stay in the house for 5 years, take the 5 years. Hey, Ron, what about if 3 years the rate comes down a little bit more? It could be... Stop it. Stop it. Okay, let's look at the reality of what's going on. We now have the trade war on, okay? And yeah, it might last a week, it might last a month, it might last 3 months, it might last a year or 2 years. We don't know. Here's what we do know. The Canadian economy is in for a very bad patch. But the trouble with trade wars is they're inflationary. Everyone knows this. Everybody on planet Earth knows this. This is the truth of it. So, yes, there will be further reductions in variable rate. If you have a variable rate right now that's 3.95 or 4.05, you could easily be 3.25, 3.35, something like that. Your variable rate will go down as the economy gets really bad and the Bank of Canada cuts. But as inflation comes back, and they'll try to push back on this. They'll try to say, well, we're going to wait and see what happens. But if inflation is consistent, then sometime by the end of this year or the first quarter of 2026, the Bank of Canada will, in all likelihood, raise rates. Now, this is the most important thing. The Bank of Canada will raise rates. By the time the Bank of Canada starts to raise, the fixed rates have gone way up already. We have perfect examples of this. We've gone through this. We went for 13 years of ultra low rates. Inflation started. Variable stayed down. Fixed rate went up. And when variable finally started to begin its horrible ascent, fixed rate, it was too late. It was too late. Fixed rates were already up to 5.5 or more, and 6s in some cases. It's when the Bank of Canada starts to raise, it's already too late to grab the variable. So I'm giving my simple warning. I said there would be rates in the mid to high 3s. There are now rates in the mid to high 3s. Go to your bank if you choose to. And by the way, I've got lots of people. There'll be people in the comments on this video who say, oh, God, no, you're wrong. It's going to go down to 2%. It's going to be depression. Rates are going to go. You can say whatever you want, okay? And you know what? You might be right. You might actually be right. But I believe in doing what I say I will do. And when I say the plan is variable till there is lots of rates below 4%, that's what I planned. That was the concept. Because a lot of people were nervous about variable. And I said, I believe this will work. So now I'm going to tell you straight. Here's an opportunity. Yes, it could go. I'm guaranteeing you variable will go lower. And yes, fixed could go lower. But what I'm trying to suggest is really clearly that this is an opportunity to lock in rates below 4% for 5 years. And I've got a whole ton of people 2 years ago that if they could have locked in rates below 4% for 5 years, they would have sold their soul for it. Like, seriously, people who were paying in the 6s were crazy desperate. Some of them sold their homes. They couldn't survive it. So I'm saying straight up, you make your own decision. Everybody makes their own decision about their own personal finances, their own mortgage. But I'm saying straight, this is an opportunity. If you have a variable rate, go to your existing lender and say, what is my offer to lock in for 5 years? Again, forget about 3 years. We're trying to create defensive protection here. And unless you know you're going to be moving in 18 months, you can stay in variable if you know you're going to be moving in 18 months. But if you think you're going to be in that house for...
Storms are in the air.
Our top story, of course, is the implementation of President Trump's new tariffs. All U.S. trading partners will face a 10% baseline levy, which goes into effect in just days. And reciprocal tariffs against countries the president calls the worst offenders begin next week. And the response from around the world is not positive. The EU Commission president called the 20% tariff on its bloc, quote, a major blow to the world economy. Stock markets in Europe and in Asia saw losses this morning. And we're about 2 hours away at this moment from Wall Street's opening bell, and futures have been in the red all morning. Economists really are concerned tariffs will increase prices for American consumers because businesses will pass down the cost. We have team coverage of this for you, following every angle. You're looking at Kelly O'Grady, who will dig into when the U.S. will feel the impact from all this. But let's begin with Ed O'Keefe on the right side of your screen, joining us from the White House. Good morning, Ed. So break down those big boards the president used as props. What is the Trump tariff plan?
You got O'Grady and O'Keefe here. The Irish mob is here to help
right.
you. Several big tariffs placed on these countries, whether it's 34% on China, 20% on EU, on the European Union bloc, 46% on Vietnam, all sorts of big percentages on countries that the White House and the president say are among the worst offenders in this case. It's going to lead to price increases of all sorts across goods, whether it's the toys and clothing and shoes especially that come from China, whether it's computer equipment and semiconductor equipment that comes from Vietnam and Taiwan, whether it's clothing again, jewels and other goods that come from India. All sorts of price increases going to be passed on to the American consumer eventually as these tariffs take effect.
Now, we would expect responses on Capitol Hill along party line, but I'm wondering if you've seen any surprises in reaction from lawmakers.
Well, not necessarily surprises, because several Republicans for years have been skeptical of this kind of move, and some of them weighed in last night objecting. We had a vote in the Senate, a mostly symbolic one, that would have essentially undone the tariffs on Canada specifically. All Democrats in the Senate were joined by 4 Republicans: Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, Mitch McConnell, and Rand Paul of Kentucky. Listen to some of the congressional reaction, beginning with the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
So when
This is
you're
not
racist,
Liberation
it's cool.
Day, it's
But
Recession
when I'm
Day
racist, it's not.
in the United States of America. That's what the Trump tariffs are going to do. Crash the economy.
These tariffs are a disaster for the average American family.
I don't think it's going to be good for us politically, but it's not good for the country either.
He made the point, Rand Paul did, that not only is this bad for the economy, but it could conceivably be very bad for Republicans. That the last time these kinds of measures were put in place, back in the 1930s, Republicans lost control of the House for the next and Senate for the next 60 years or so.
Vote.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin with the breaking news from Wall Street.
Breaking
Trading has been underway now for just about 30 minutes, and nervous investors, very nervous investors, are weighing in on President Trump's historic new global tariffs. The early assessment, deep concerns. Almost all goods entering the United States will face a new tax of at least 10%, and that means inflation-weary Americans will see even higher prices on virtually everything. And that adds to the deepening concerns among economists that the U.S. and indeed much of the world may be on a collision course with a recession. Let's begin this hour with CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. She's in New York watching all of this unfold. So Vanessa, where do the markets stand right now?
Wolf, markets are tumbling as investors are really digesting worse than expected tariffs. You have the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P all down below, as you can see there, 3%.
Wow.
Retail stocks in particular really selling off. Nike, Adidas, Lululemon, these are companies that source a lot of their goods from abroad, countries that are now under higher tariffs. And just look at the countries that were hit in yesterday's announcement. You have the European Union, 20% tariff. You have Japan, 24%, China, 34%, and Vietnam, 46%. Key trading partners to the U.S. Investors are worried what this means for businesses, and then, of course, those businesses' profits. But let's just reset. What do we know right now? We know that there are auto tariffs in effect right now. But coming on Saturday is that 10% universal tariff on Wednesday, higher tariffs on about 60 countries, tariffs on auto parts, foreign auto parts on May 3rd, and then maybe coming additional tariffs on lumber, semiconductors, and I'll add copper there as well. And as you mentioned, Wolf, there is talk of what this could mean for a recession. I just spoke to an analyst who says that the longer that these tariffs stay in place, the more likely that there will be a recession. We also heard from Mark Zandi from Moody's Analytics, who said if they follow through, if these tariffs go into effect, I'd buckle up and brace for impact. A recession seems more likely than not. Wolf?
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich in New York for us. Thank you very much, Pamela.
Well, Wolf, the White House and Republican lawmakers concede that the ripple effect of the tariffs will cause some pain to Americans. But the White House says it's the initial cost to revive manufacturing jobs in the U.S. Here's what the vice president said this morning.
For 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and for American companies that build here. We're going to make it harder to ship American jobs overseas. It's a total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary.
All right, let's go live now to CNN White House reporter Elena Trina. Elena, what else are you hearing from the administration this morning?
Well, Pamela, it's clear that the White House has been very intentional in its messaging. You know, despite some of the president's defenders, Republicans on Capitol Hill, others who have argued that the president is a pragmatist at heart, that perhaps he would pull back on some of these tariffs, it's clear they were wrong. The president was serious about this, and as Vance just laid out, and as we've heard from other top advisors this morning, he is committed to these tariffs really because he fundamentally believes the United States is getting taken advantage of, and he wants to really break the trading system that has been built over the last 70 or 80 years now and see this realignment. Now, we heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt this morning. She was speaking with CNN. She said that, you know, this isn't going to be a negotiation. This is a national emergency. Listen to how she put it.
The president is firm in his approach, and the president is ensuring economic stability here in the United States of America. This is a common sense policy, and if these countries wanted to negotiate, if these countries wanted to do what's right, they've had 70 years to do it.
Doing whatever I feel
I think,
like,
Pamela,
suppose.
the end of her answer
Same
there,
with
saying
tomorrow.
it's 70
And the day
years
after that.
to negotiate, is really key here, because that's the question now. Where do we go from here? We're going to see, as Vanessa just laid out, all of these different countries likely respond and in kind to these tariffs and retaliate. That could further escalate this trade war now. And so that's really the key question. One thing as well, just as we watch the stock market, is that the president has been far less reactionary to how the stock market is in this term, in his second administration, than in his first. We have been told repeatedly now not to see him react to the stock market directly because of this. Instead, he has said repeatedly now that he believes there will be some short-term pain. So I'd keep that in mind as well as we cover this. Pamela?
All right, Elena Train, thank you so much. Wolf?
All right, Pamela, as we mentioned, analysts now say that President Trump's tariffs will likely plunge the global economy into recession this year. Some countries say they're hoping they can negotiate with the U.S., while others have vowed swift retaliation. Listen.
Swallows nest
네,
when
아메리카
skies are
政府に対しましてはこれまで
We had been requesting the U.S. government to review its unilateral tariff measures at various levels, and we are extremely disappointed and regret that such measures have been implemented nonetheless.
Our intention remains to secure a deal, but nothing is off the table.
We will continue to make the strongest case for these unjustified tariffs to be removed from our exporters.
We are going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures. We are going to protect our workers.
The entire global economy will suffer from these ill-considered decisions.
Stock markets across Asia have already tumbled after President Trump's announcement. Now China has vowed to counter what it calls bullying
make it out of this ad
by the
land?
United States. I'm going to go live to Beijing. CNN's Mark Stewart is on the scene for us. Mark, what kind of retaliation potentially could we see from China?
Right, Wolf, good morning. China says it is ready to fight back, but if this is a war, it's not necessarily revealing its plans about how and when it will strike. It certainly has the option, though, of continuing on the tariff theme by instituting more tariffs, more punishment, specifically targeting American farmers. Right now, China imports a lot of soybeans from the United States. There are existing tariffs. Certainly, China could double down on that. But what's been interesting all day today, China's been very much taking on this diplomatic tone, talking about themes of resolving differences, urging the United States to cancel the tariffs. So it's kind of this wait-and-see mode as this April 9th deadline approaches. There is certainly an economic side to all of this, but there's also a lot of ego involved. Both Xi Jinping and Donald Trump want to look strong on the world stage. As one analyst mentioned to us today, it's the real question of who will fold first. Nonetheless, as you mentioned, this is creating a lot of anxiety, not just here in China, but across the entire region. Markets are not looking at this favorably. We saw declines across many of the markets in Asia, including Japan, which of course is home to the auto giants, including Toyota and Honda. Wolf.
All right, Mark Stewart in Beijing for us. Mark, thanks very much. Pamela.
And stock markets in Europe.
Shut the fuck up! Had enough of it.
The best rattan furniture
No
is
more.
made from strands that are smooth, thin, and strong like silk. Furniture like that can be just as precious as a silver family heirloom. That's no exaggeration.
Hi, it's John, and welcome to the channel. It is Thursday, April the 3rd. Of course, I have my big blue mug of coffee. This morning, I'm just sitting back here. I've got my big cat Blue on my lap. And I shot a complete video this morning.
Oh,
It
yeah?
took me
Did
over
you?
an hour to do it. It's in my computer right now. I'm going to watch it back, and I may post it later today. It's about fear. It's about how the liberals are using fear to drive people to vote for them at the end of the month. I finished the video and I thought, is this the kind of atmosphere I want to live in? With a party that would do that to people to motivate them to vote for them. That's where we are, folks. I'm really torn with this election campaign. As you know, if you've watched my channel, I am an Alberta separatist.
Life goes on.
But at the same time, I don't want the Liberals to win this election. I want Pierre Poilievre to win the election. I want to punish the Liberal Party, and I mean that in an extreme way. They need to be punished. They need to be where they were a couple of months ago, on the verge of losing their party, but we're not there now. I remember a few months back, I did a video on this. I'd have to check the date. People were calling for Trudeau to step down. I did a video saying I don't want Trudeau to step down because I want to punish him in the election. He's gone. Carney's worse. And all the same people in the Liberal Party that have been punishing Canada, and in particular my province, Alberta, for 10 years, are still there. I want to punish them. I go online this morning after this tariff issue thing with Donald Trump, and we came out of this pretty much unscathed on Wednesday. You wouldn't know that from Mark Carney. He's ramping up the fear again today. People are going apeshit crazy. My premier, Danielle Smith, the best premier in the best province in the country, came out today saying in a post on X, we generally came out of this unscathed. There are some issues with the automotive industry, aluminum and steel, but for the most part, she thinks diplomacy has worked in this situation, and people call her a traitor. And I say, God love her. God forbid she should stick up for her province. God forbid she use diplomacy to try to solve this issue. But all we've got from our leaders in this country, yes, Mark Carney and the Liberal Party, yes, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party, and all the people out east who are voting Liberal, is tantrum
Doing
over
whatever I
Donald
feel
Trump.
like, I suppose. Same with tomorrow.
And a switch from the Conservative Party to the Liberal Party, who I want to punish. People out east, you are stabbing Alberta, the West, and your country in the back. Honestly, I'd like to see Pure Poilievre win because I don't want to give the Liberals a win in this. I don't like Liberal politics. And I think if Poilievre wins Alberta and the West, I'm not talking about BC, insignificant. We'll get some respect. And maybe we can build our country up. But I'll also get a win if the Liberals win. And this is where I'm torn. Because I have no doubt at this point, separation is closer than it's ever been right now. And it's getting closer day by day as we get closer to the end of this election.
Yeah, let's go.
And I'm gonna be happy that that happens. And again, I'm so torn with this right now. It's the way I'm feeling. And the question I had this morning, and it ran through my head a bunch of times, is Canada just over?
Yeah. Fuck Canada.
Is Canada over? It's been a long run. But I think it's time for us, my province, to leave.
Yeah, let's go.
We haven't got any support from the East. You don't understand what goes on out here. We're different. We're different like the Atlantic provinces are different. You just don't understand. And why the hell would I want to be in a house when the people in the house don't respect me, don't respect my beliefs, don't respect the other people I'm with in the house, and would rather we just leave anyway? So that's how I'm feeling this morning. Maybe it's time to just leave. Because these constant swings back and forth, from feeling good about the way things are going yesterday to feeling bad about the way things are going today because of Mark Carney and his fear campaign and the people who follow Mark Carney, and there's a lot of them out there, I don't think Canada's worth it anymore. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Again, I might have another video later today.
Facts, yeah. Alberta needs to leave Canada. Fuck Canada. Let Canada fall apart. Alberta doesn't need to be part of it.
Day the tariffs were going to be implemented, and yet still there is no clarity on what it is that's going to be taking place. In fact, it's going to be going country to country with flexibility and retaliatory tariffs, and all the misunderstandings or miscommunications or just lack of clarity that has taken place has everybody absolutely confused on what it is that's going to be happening going into the future when we think about what it is that tariffs are going to do to supply chains, what it's going to do to inflation, what it's going to do to the economy here in the United States as far as slowing the economy down or creating manufacturing here in the United States. Nobody has any clue of what it is that has taken place. And I believe it is that failure to create a clear understanding of what's happening within the tariffs, within the economy, within the idea of what it is that's going on with the global supply chains. By keeping that uncertainty incredibly elevated, then they are able to conduct themselves using their words. And this is exactly how it is that I have described it for many years now, using the credible threat theory. Now, when you think about the threats of tariffs, look at all the reaction that people are having. Think about all the economic data that is now coming out talking about what these tariffs are doing to the economy, and yet nothing has happened yet, right? I mean, there's stuff happening, but nobody knows exactly what it is. And with that uncertainty in that misguided information that doesn't clarify what it is that's taking place, leaves people's imagination to running incredibly wild, and it is running wild. Think about how it is that some people out there are literally cutting back on their business, their operations, their ideas of doing bids when it comes to, you know, carpentry work or contracting work. All these people are reacting to something that hasn't happened yet. The threat of it is happening, it is occurring right now, but since nobody knows exactly what it is, they aren't actually doing anything that is reacting to what has occurred. They're reacting to the credible threat of it. And this is amazing on how well it works. Once you understand and you look at the credible threat theory and you think about what it is that they are communicating out there, constantly keeping it very misinformed. Like they do not want the people certain. They don't want them certain. They want them very uncertain about the future. And this is what's actually occurring, is they are creating the uncertainty on purpose to keep you confused. If they keep you confused and unknowing of what's coming in the future, their words are now more impactful and more important to you. And this is what we're seeing today. I mean, you think about it, we were supposed to have tariffs on day one. Then they postponed them. Then they postponed them again. They said across the board 25% tariffs, no exceptions. Well, except that there's flexibility and possibly retaliatory, right? I mean, nobody knows exactly what it is that's taking place, but yet at the beginning of the year, they were very sure, right? The certainty of tariffs were definitely pronounced. But the idea of what those tariffs were not, right? So here we are thinking about the tariffs, knowing they're going to impact our lives, has the entire economy completely on edge, and yet nothing has been clarified. And still yet today, when we were supposed to have the clarity, it's coming later today. And even at that, it's probably going to be very vague in what it is that's actually happening with these tariffs, on who's getting tariffed, on how much they're getting tariffed, right? The idea of what it is that they are doing with the possible threats of the future is how they conduct their monetary policy. This is how, not just monetary policy, fiscal policy, all policy. It's all now based on a credible threat theory. They don't actually do anything. But yet the communication of what it is that they are promising to do into the future has a profound impact on the economy. And I'm not saying that they're not going to do something, like there is going to be something that happens, but to what level, to what understanding, right? Nobody knows that. Nobody knows what it is. And as we continue to think about what it is that is going to come to the future, it's all hypothetical. It's all what is. And yet it has a profound real reaction within the economy today. So I think about some of the things that we are experiencing out there where you have people slowing down on their operations, on their business, wait and see idea of what's going to come. If it is not as bad as what they had thought it was going to be, what kind of snapback into the economy is going to take place? If all of a sudden they realize it was just like, oh man, these threats of tariffs and how bad that they were going to be and impacting the entire economy, it didn't turn out to be as bad as it was. How much pent-up economic activity is taking place right now with the wait-and-see attitude? Yeah. So long as they keep them in that wait-and-see attitude, you're going to have a pent-up economic activity. People are literally saying, no, I don't want to participate right now. I'm going to back off until I can see what it is that's actually taking place. Think about that. That is the same thing as saying, hey, I'm going to postpone my project for a while. If everybody starts postponing their projects for a while, regardless of the situation, if there was a time that comes to them and says, hey, I am enjoying this economic environment. I think the interest rates are right. I think the, whatever, the business activity is enough for me to say, yes, I feel confident on participating in this economy. Can you imagine how many people right now who are backing off on their projects would come right? To let it go, to let that action, to release the action. Expectation, which is actually a benefit to the Federal Reserve. I know a lot of people don't know that, but it's an actual benefit to the Federal Reserve. Every time you have an elevated inflation expectation, people have a tendency to back off on what it is that they are spending their money on. They want to hold on to their money for the future to figure out what it is that they are going to end up having to deal with. And if they are going to deal with higher prices, they're going to want to have some sort of cash holding to deal with those higher prices going into the future. And this is where a lot of people are slowing down on their economic activity and moving more into a savings position. Whether or not they're able to save, considering the, how bad